Where do you go to climb the highest mountain in Texas?
I don't know.
Guadalupe Mountains National Park, of course.
3 adventurous kids. 2 amazing parents.
1 awesome dog.
Set off to fulfill their dream of exploring the world.
Welcome to our life.
The Sinneman Life!
In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long of a drive. The drive between Big Bend and Guadalupe Mountains was nothing compared to the 1,550 miles we'd just driven 6 days earlier from Wisconsin. But this drive felt long. Add to that, I don't think we were totally ready to leave Big Bend. There was still a lot of park to see there, and we could have probably spent another week exploring. Nonetheless, we found ourselves headed northbound on what felt like an endless, uneventful car ride towards Guadalupe Mountains National Park. It was late afternoon by the time we had arrived at the park. We'd set our sights on camping at the Dog Canyon campground, but here we were losing daylight and we couldn't find the entrance to lead us there. So, we backtracked to the McKittrick Canyon entrance to ask for some help. It was here that we found out we were nowhere close to Dog Canyon. We would have to drive another 3+ hours to get to that campground, and it was already after 3 p.m. So we scrapped our entire plan and decided that a quick hike around the Pine Springs Visitor Center would have to suffice. We had received a couple of recommendations on a free campground on BLM land about 30 minutes up the road. It seemed legit, and after a long day of traveling, accompanied by the unexpected wrinkles in our plan, it appeared to be our simplest solution. By then, however, the wind had picked up and was steadily whipping around at 30 miles per hour, which made cooking dinner nearly impossible. And while eventually we were finally able to cook our meat for tacos, the post-dinner popcorn attempt was a fail. Moderately defeated and hoping for better luck tomorrow, we decided to retire for the night. It felt like we missed a lot at Guadalupe Mountains National Park. Mainly because we did. And we took in a bunch of information at the visitor center and on our short hike around the visitor center, but come on, I mean, we missed some of the best attributes of that park.
Unfortunately, Mother Nature had different plans for us, and we were outrunning a windstorm and a snowstorm that was soon to be approaching the area. So we had to make decisions on which parks we wanted to see in that area and what experiences we wanted to have.
You know, we did a bunch of research and watched a bunch of YouTube videos and got super excited about all these things at the park, and then, well, we failed. It felt like defeat.
Well, climbing the tallest mountain in Texas was definitely one of the things we wanted to accomplish. It didn't end up making the cut because there were so many other amazing places we wanted to go and experience.
The good news is this failed encounter encouraged us to establish some guidelines to our whimsical life on the road. Guideline 1.
Get up and get going earlier.
We were getting up about sunrise because that's when it would start getting light inside of our camper, and we found that we wasted a lot of daytime because it was winter and the sun was setting earlier and coming up later. We lost a lot of opportunity to have experiences because we spent a good chunk of the morning kind of bumming around camp, drinking multiple cups of coffee before getting a move on and going out and exploring what was around us.
Yeah, and also we were arriving to camp and it was already dusk, so we found that we were cooking dinner and cleaning up and getting everything all set up in the dark.
Which brings us to our second guideline. Guideline 2. On the days that we are traveling, we have to limit our drive times to 3 to 4 hours because we needed time to set up camp before it got dark. And when it got dark, temperatures dipped substantially. We had some really cold nights where had we been able to set camp earlier and get solidified, we would have not had frozen water to wash dishes with. At this point, we're about a week into our trip and we're still, evolving our processes on how to maximize our experience. And while we had some good ideas, it takes a lot to execute on those good ideas.
Especially when you got 3 regrets holding you back. So, to revisit that question from earlier.
Where do you go?
To climb the highest mountain in Texas.
Guadalupe Mountains National Park, of course.
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 Coming in at number 1, measuring 8,751 feet above sea level, is
Guadalupe Peak.
Also known as Signal Peak.
But don't stop there. This park also has the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th highest peaks
In Ziegler, Texas.
Evidence found here, such as rock paintings, baskets, and pottery, tells us humans lived in the Guadalupe mountain range as far back as 10,000 years ago.
You won't be driving through this park.
Just like back then, you will not be driving through this park.
Not today, not ever.
There aren't any actual roads here,
But
You will find over 80 miles of trails to hike.
even though the park is in the mountain time zone,
it's so close to the central time zone that you will have to change your phone to make it display correctly.
Guadalupe Mountains is one of the least visited national parks.
Even though it's only 40 miles away from its much more popular sister park,
Carlsbad Caverns.
Although they're in different states, these parks share many things. They're in the same time zone, share the Guadalupe mountain range, and are both in the Chihuahuan Desert. Let's rewind back over 260 million years ago to the Permian period.
Before there were mountains and caverns, this land was covered by a 400-mile-long horseshoe-shaped reef called Capitan Reef.
Capitan Reef bordered a tropical inland sea.
This reef has now become the world's best protected and largest marine fossil reef from the Permian period. So with these new guidelines we'd established in mind, we got to Carlsbad Caverns the next morning, right about the time they opened.
We walked into the visitor center and we were floored by how huge it was.
And Emmylou and I were a bit apprehensive about going underground into a cave. And we really didn't know what to expect, so we were nervous. So we were procrastinating.
Before 1925,
guests were lowered into the caves in a big bucket.
Yikes!
The kind ranger explained to us that there were 2 options.
You could take the natural entrance walk, which is about 1.25 miles down about 750 feet. And it took a couple hours.
Pretty lengthy hike.
Or the other option was to take the elevator straight down.
High speed elevator.
Into the cave.
Yeah.
now guests can choose to walk the steep 1.25 mile trail or take the more leisurely elevator option, 750 feet into and out of the caverns.
And you could do either one in and either one out. So we chose walk in and then the easy elevator out.
The first time.
Yes. A big part of going to Carlsbad Caverns is getting to see the bats fly in and out of the caves every day.
From early spring through October, guests can sit near the natural entrance at the outdoor amphitheater to watch hundreds of thousands of Brazilian free-tailed bats fly from the cave to eat their nightly meals of insects. In the 1880s, people would mine the caves for guano,
Which is bat poo.
to use for fertilizer.
We didn't get to experience that because we were there in February, which I can't say I'm totally upset about.
No. We walked down and took our time, and Emmylou and I freaked out. But when we got inside, the cave was huge. It was massive. Just
Huge. It was not a cave. It was like a...
cavern, maybe, in Carlsbad. It was enormous.
It was
I mean, there were some tight corridor kind of walkways where the ceiling comes close, but overall, it was just enormous inside and damp and cool.
Yeah.
It's always 56 degrees Fahrenheit in the caverns.
I mean, you could literally see stalactites and stalagmites forming right before your eyes.
Stalactites, stalagmites, stalactites, stalagmites.
Water would drip onto these stalagmites,
Yeah.
and there would be like a shiny coat over the top as they were just slowly growing.
Yeah, that was really cool.
The most popular route here is called the Big Room,
The big room.
measuring 1,850 feet long and 230 feet high at its tallest spot. This is the largest single cave by volume in North America. The route around the Big Room is 1.5 miles long, but there's also a shortcut that is 0.6 miles long.
So by the time we got to the bottom of the path and we actually entered, the big room is the cavern that we were going to. The kids were hungry for lunch. So
So we took the elevator
up
up.
the elevator we went. Back to the car for sandwiches. Kevin and Oliver weren't feeling very well that day. So the guys hung back
and took a nap in the car.
while the girls and I went back in. This is a cool place. I'd go back again. But I'd need a new partner to
I
crawl
would
through
go back again.
crawl through openings with me.
Oh, there's a group of people on a guided tour that were going into spots in the caverns where you had to crawl and kind of slither through.
Yeah, we stopped to watch them for a while.
I couldn't do it.
Eden and I were ready to drink, but the rest of the family not so much. So maybe another time.
Ta-da!
That was it. That was about all we got to do.
We jumped in the car and drove towards Roswell, New Mexico, on our way to northern New Mexico to camp for the night.
Yep.
Come back next time as we wake up to some snow and experience sub-zero temperatures. We troubleshoot a broken trailer and navigate icy roads at Mesa Verde National Park before moving up the road to Moab, Utah.
I am really zoomed in right now. Why am I so zoomed in?